It's a Saturday evening. It's fairly late. It's just gone 10:30. And myself and my wife have discussed this for a long time. Last year she was taken to the hospital with pulmonary embolism. And the effects of that and what happened have disgusted me and my wife with what and how the NHS reacted to it and how she was treated. But as everything's gone on over the past year and longer, we've meant to do this for a long time. I've encouraged her to write things down, thinking it would make a good book or at least a good article on a website. There's lots of whistleblowers coming out, and this is what this is. We decided the other day that we were going to do this podcast off the cuff. There's nothing written down in front of us. It was basically just me and my wife talking, which is going to be an odd thing because I'm interviewing my wife, and that's not what you do. But can I introduce my wife? It's Caroline. Hello. Yeah, it's odd. It is odd.
I'm not odd. I'm not the odd one.
No, it's me. What happened last year? I'm going to try and let Caroline explain what happened and how it went from her point of view. I'm going to try and ask a few questions, just try and bring the conversation along a little bit. But this is Caroline's story. It's not mine. It's nothing to do with me, really.
Well, it is.
It is, but it was how you were treated and how people are not seeing this because they're not being told. And they should be told. And that's the reason why we've done this. I think where we should start is which we didn't know at the time, was how the pulmonary embolism happened. We've put it down to a moment where Caroline slipped in the kitchen, and she's got her knees are not the best knees. She's fallen a couple of times on her knees. She's had issues for many years, but she fell in the kitchen on her knees, and she was struggling with that. And I think from that point onwards, she deteriorated over probably a month. That it wasn't a change that we noticed straight away, but it was something where she became less and less and less mobile, and she started to have breathing issues where she was trying to get up and down the stairs, and she was struggling to go up and down. She couldn't get up in one full run at the steps, if you know what I mean. So she was stopping halfway. That ended up being stopping every third. Then it ended up stopping every 2 steps. And then we realised that, there's something not right here. You usually give it a couple of days, hope that it's going to turn around, and it didn't. It went on and on and on. And it got worse and worse and worse until basically we kind of said, look, you're going to have to go to the hospital. And she, because of what's going on and what was going on at the time, and how everything was being portrayed, and from the beginning, from day one, we've not been total. We've been absolutely not total believers in what's been the mainstream media and the agenda that's out there with COVID and how it's been handled with in the press and by the government, and especially the way the NHS have dealt with it, where they've shut down wards and they've shut down services, leaving people to die. And the thought was, we'll just sort it out at home. But they came to a point where we couldn't sort this out at home because she was just getting worse and worse.
Yeah, well, the leading up to going into hospital was, I phoned the doctors when I finally got through, and they told me they couldn't see me, or they wouldn't see me anyway, but they couldn't get anybody to even ring me back until at least 5 days later.
That's right, yeah.
And I told the receptionist, I'll probably be dead by then if I don't see anybody. So she urged me to ring the 111 service, where I explained the symptoms to them. Is it 101 or 111? Anyway, whichever one it is, doesn't matter. They're a service. They're supposed to help you. They said I needed to go to hospital straight away. Did they need to send an ambulance? I said no, because of course I don't want to misuse public services when there might be somebody else dying. So I said we'd make us own way there, which we did. She gave me an appointment to book in, and that's how I ended up being booked into the hospital.
Yeah. Were you given a reference number? I think we were, weren't we?
Yeah, we were given a booking that we could show on she sent me an email to my phone.
Yeah.
Or a booking reference, something.
Because I remember, because it was probably, it was in mine probably, it was the worst time that I could ever imagine, because getting you into the car and seeing that you were struggling with your breathing, and when we parked up at the hospital and we got out of the car, and that what was it, about a 50-yard walk from the car? It took us a good 10 minutes, didn't it? Because we just kept stopping because you're just so out of breath. From my point of view, when we walked into the hospital, neither of us were wearing masks, because we just don't. You can say we're exempt, but we just don't. And we walked into the hospital, and there was barely anybody in there. There were a couple of people, and the woman behind the glass. In fact, there were a couple of women behind the glass, but I think it must have been changeover time or something, because nobody came to see us straight away to say there was hardly anybody there. We stood behind the yellow line, which left us about 5 or 6 feet away from the glass, which is a joke in amongst itself. And when I finally got somebody's attention, she turned around and I said, "My wife, she's struggling to breathe. You know, we've rung 111. I think it's 111. They've given us a reference number and they booked us in." And then I had questions thrown at us about COVID. And I just shut her down straight away, because what happened in the first year, Caroline didn't go anywhere. She hasn't been out of the house really for nearly enough 12 months at that point. I think it was just before that she may have been out a couple of times, been shopping with me. But because I was working, I was furloughed for quite a long time, but then I was working for probably June onwards. I was doing the shopping on my way home, so, you know, she didn't come into contact with many other people. So we knew that it wasn't that, because I was fine. The reason being not going shopping with me was because of immobility with her knee after the fall. So taking her to hospital that time, it absolutely killed me, because this woman stood behind the glass and tried to tell me that it was COVID. And I shut her down straight away and said, "Look, it's not COVID. We know it's not COVID. 100% it's not COVID, because she's not been anywhere. Now, we've booked her in. She can't breathe properly. Can you carry on with the process?"
She actually demanded we put masks on.
She did.
Which we said, no, we're exempt.
We refused.
Yeah.
We said we're exempt, because that seems to be the word
easiest thing
to get around everything,
yeah.
is that we were exempt. Which she tutted and did the eye rolling thing, which they all do. And then she booked her in, which took a good few minutes, and she was, I mean, you were stood there, you were struggling. You're not just with walking, you were struggling at that point to even stand, because she was really short of breath. And she said, "Right, I booked her in." And she looked at her and said, "You can go through to A&E, into the waiting room. You're not going with her." And I just looked at her and said, "I'm fucking going with her. You're not stopping me. I'm taking my wife round to the waiting room." And she just looked at me, and I just grabbed hold of Caroline and I took her round to the waiting room. There were a couple of people in there. There weren't many. How many were there?
2 more people. 2
more people. And there were a bundle of nurses there. I think there were a couple of nurses that I saw when I went in that were stood there. So I made sure she were sat down, made sure she was okay, knowing that from this point onwards I would never see her again until she came out, because of how they've dealt with this, if she came out. And we also knew that contact was going to be limited. So a phone was charged up before we went, but unfortunately we'd forgotten the charger, which caused a bit of a headache with contact, because Caroline wanted to keep the phone charged for as long as she could, so that if anything happened, she could get in contact. Now, from this point onwards, where I dropped her off at the hospital, I walked back out and I was angry. I was really angry with how the reception had treated us. So I remember walking out, and as I walked past the receptionist, she looked at me and she had that scowl on her face. I remember her. She had that scowl on her face, and I just turned around and I just pointed at her and I said that you're a fucking disgrace, because I was so concerned of how. In fact, it wasn't a case of how; it was a case of whether Caroline was going to come out of this alive or not. This was a life or death thing, and it didn't seem to matter to the receptionist. She was too busy ticking a box, and you must obey the rules, and rules go out of the window when people's lives are concerned, especially your wives, because that's more important than anything else. So yeah, I just walked out, I got in the car and drove home, and from that point onwards, I sat on my phone at home. I just kept picking the thing up every 2 minutes, just thinking, oh, hopefully she's going to text me and she's going to be all right. And I think from this point, it's more Caroline's story now and there's some horrendous things that she's going to tell you, which you're not going to believe. But this is from a person that actually went through it. So if anybody's got a right to say this, it's her.
I sat there waiting with the other two people, socially distanced from me, as they are in there. It's about, I'd say 15 chairs in a waiting room these days, and you're not allowed to sit next to anybody, which is strange, but you're in a hospital which is supposed to treat you. Anyway, I got called through eventually. My name got called, so I got up and tried to walk through to the A&E. Of course, I couldn't walk very far without stopping. And the nurse came back out and wondered where I was, obviously, and I said, you'll have to wait because I can't really get there. I'm making my way, which she didn't offer to get a wheelchair or anything for me. She just let me trundle along at my pace behind her, stopping to hold onto a wall every now and again. Didn't seem too bothered. Didn't want to get too close. As I got into the A&E area, it was very quiet and ghostly. There was no one else in there apart from about 8 other healthcare workers.
I think we should just point out here that this was at the beginning of January.
Yeah, it was the peak. It was the peak of the second wave, apparently, where...
2021.
Yeah, where everybody apparently, it was a war zone. That's what they told everybody on the news. It was an absolute war zone, and the people on the front line were war heroes, and they weren't getting any sleep. They were working non-stop around the clock. I don't know what doing, because, like I say, there was me and another person in A&E at that time, in the beds area, not in the waiting room. And I walked along, and a consultant watched me walk to him, to the bay where I was gonna be treated. And he was a small guy, nice man. He spoke to me fine. And he said to me, sit down. I've never seen anybody looking as grey as you that wasn't about to die. I thought, thank you very much. You've either got, what I can see in you now is you've either got heart failure or clots. So he knew, but he said, but we've got to treat you for COVID-19. And I said, I haven't got COVID-19. He says, you don't know that. I says, I do know that. I says, I haven't got COVID-19. He says, yes, but you're overweight, which is quite right, I am, and you can't breathe. So that means we have to treat you first for COVID-19. I says, argued my point, I haven't got COVID-19. You took a look at me and you said 2 other things before this, and I'd quite agree with you on those over the COVID-19. But no. They've got to do the thing where they have to treat you for COVID-19. So anyway, lots of questions and answers went between myself and the consultant. And off he trotted, leaving me sat there on the bed. Wow.
You've still not been treated, have you?
No, I haven't been treated. I haven't been given anything yet. I was in there a good hour and a half before anything actually happened to me.
Before the consultant saw you?
No, he saw me straight away.
Oh, straight away, okay.
But he went away to to speak to someone else, obviously, about what they were going to do. Obviously knew that I didn't want a bar of the COVID thingy. He eventually came back and took an ECG of myself. It's nothing conclusive in that. You know, listen to my chest and all that, as they do, all that business. Nothing conclusive in that, so they wanted to obviously do more tests on me. But before any of that could be done, I had to have the PCR test. So along came a young man who had previously witnessed in the A&E playing pin the tail on the consultant's back because they had nothing to do. So him and about 4 other nurses were going round, and when the consultants were sat at the desks, they were pinning post-it notes in this war zone to the backs.
This was in A&E.
This is in A&E still not been treated. Hadn't even been put on oxygen then, and I was just watching them. Obviously, I was out of kilter because in any other realm I would have filmed this.
Yeah, because you're normally quite a strong character, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not really into filming this, but because of filming anything that happens, I'm not really that bothered. People get on with it. But this is a place where they were saying masses of people were dying, people were all on their last legs, these doctors were overworked and exhausted, and I'm seeing them playing games and handing Christmas biscuits round and cakes, and one guy was building up some cabinet or other in front of my bay. But yeah, I didn't film it, which was a bit silly. But then I didn't have a charger for my phone. I didn't know how long I was going to be in there for. So I just wanted to conserve my battery. I've told people this before, and I've been called a liar. And this was seen through my eyes, so I know it's true. I wasn't that ill that I couldn't see that. Anyway, the PCR, the young guy was so shocked that I said, "You're not putting that up my nose."
Because we knew about the ethylene oxide,
the blood-brain barrier.
The blood-brain barrier business.
Yeah. He just went, "What? Are you kidding?" I says, "I'm not a comedian." I says, "I'm not having it. You're not putting that anywhere into my nose." I says, "I'll spit on something for you. You can take some blood if you want to appease yourself that way. But there's no way that pugil stick is going up my nose." So anyway, the nurses heard this. 3 of them come surrounding me, shouting at me, saying, "You do know people are dying from this. We have people that die here from this." And I says, "Do they not die from anything else then? Do they not die from cancer? Do they not die from sepsis? Do they not die from dementia? Do they not die from heart attacks? Are they not dying from anything else but this?" And I got called stupid. I'm going to kill people if I don't do this. And I says, "Well, I'm still not doing it." And these nurses, 3 of them, then went off and told the consultant that I discharged myself.
You see, we've had this conversation a number of times since you were in. And every single time it makes my piss boil. It really does. It doesn't make my blood boil.
Yeah.
It makes my piss boil because I get so angry. Because A, it's you. And B, it could have been anybody. It could have been anybody. Absolutely anybody. And I know your character, and I know what you're like, and I know you were practically on death's door, but you still managed to keep that strength there. But there are people that won't have that strength, who will have given in and done everything that they've said they were going to do.
It's not a matter of strength, it's a matter of knowing that absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's no need. We've done enough research to know that one false slip of that PCR test and me not breathing properly could have resulted in me being on a ventilator.
Yeah.
And there's no way on earth I'd have rather gassed my last breath there, being autonomously breathing as much as I could, than let them mechanically breathe me when I didn't need that.
when we also knew that countless people have died
exactly.
from being given the wrong treatment.
That's exactly why I didn't want to go in there with a breathing problem, because I knew exactly what they'd do, and they tried to do that to me.
Yeah.
They tried to make me a COVID statistic when I wasn't one, and I knew I wasn't. Whether you believe in COVID or not, I wasn't one of those statistics, and I didn't want to be put down as one, which countless people have, and when they haven't been. So the consultant came back over to me and says, I've heard you've discharged yourself. I says, no. I says, your coven of witches have tried to, and that's really being disrespectful for witches, because they're quite good people. That's another story. But
this is a gaggle of nurses.
Yes, a gaggle of nurses, which said they weren't going to treat me
This
anymore.
is frontline nurses. This is
frontline.
These are the saviours,
Warzone,
the saints.
They're saving the world.
These are the people getting the discounts and all the praise and banging the pans and what wonderful people these are that have said this to you.
Yeah. So they didn't want anything to do with me, and they weren't going to treat me anymore. Yeah, that was that basically. And, you know, I had a little conversation with the consultant where he said, so you don't believe in COVID then? I says, I don't think it is what you're saying it is. I don't know exactly what it is. I says, I've done a lot of research on it. He says, oh, and where'd you get that research from then? I says, well, where do you think? You know, I says, there's a plethora. I says,
Facebook.
Yeah, he thought, exactly.
Because that's where they think you get it from.
Facebook and Twitter,
They don't think that we're intelligent enough to understand the ONS spreadsheets. They don't think we're intelligent enough.
Which I did tell him. And I just said, look, we know, I says, we study the government's sites, we study other scientists that are not in the mainstream media and what they're saying, and I know something's not right. So I said, I asked him, what do you think? And he said, well, I wouldn't like my granny to get it. And I said, well, I wouldn't like my granny to get cancer either, or dementia, or any other thing that kills you.
Or even the flu.
Whatever, yeah. And he looked at me and he couldn't quite answer me back for that. And after that, he put me on oxygen, which I needed. He knew I weren't messing about. There's no getting around the fact that they're not going to do what they want to do and experiment on you with these ventilation techniques that they're using, or any other mad thing. He came back later and I said, I need admitting. And I said, I'll only stay for a night. Ended up being 5, but, you know.
Purely because you were adamant, well, because of what?
I don't trust them.
That's what it's down to, isn't it?
Didn't trust them. I'd seen already what they were doing and what they said to me. I mean, you know, the little fat nurse told me, you're overweight, so it's COVID. And it's just like, well, have you got it then? You know. Have you?
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah, it is ridiculous. I find myself, constantly shaking my head when we have these conversations, because part of me is just thinking, I can't believe that they're saying this to you.
Oh, I had a conversation with her about the PCR, because she come back up to me and she said, why won't you have the PCR test? And I just said, look, I'm not having that shoved up my nose. Well, why not? It doesn't do any harm. I says, apart from having cancer-causing chemicals on it, I says, one false slip and that crap will be up into my blood-brain barrier. It doesn't do that, she said. I says, when did you qualify? She says, what do you mean? I says, because we all know that right up there where they shove those long sticks goes right up into your blood-brain barrier. Now, either you know that or you're stupid, love. To which she walked away. I never saw her again. So she must have known she was stupid.
Yeah.
So, never saw her again. But yeah, that was one of the many things just recalled. The other thing is when I wanted to go to the toilet, because they left me in A&E for over 4.5 hours. I might have been getting on to 5 hours. Because obviously when they admit you, it takes ages, because they've got to find a bed. And in that time, obviously, I wanted to take a visit to the loo. No, I said I wanted to go. I took my oxygen off. Not one person offered to help me to the toilet although I still couldn't breathe or walk properly then. You know, they could have got one of them little chairs that they push you about on and just took me to it, and I just sorted myself out. That's fine. I didn't want a bedpan. So I had to get up, and I asked a nurse where was the nearest one, and she just like pointed somewhere in the distance. I had a quick scan, couldn't see a sign, but I knew there was one right back into the waiting area. So I started walking that way, whereupon a nurse screamed at me, "You got to wear a mask." And I says, "I don't have to wear a mask. You are in this setting, you have to wear a mask." I said, "I'm exempt." "Well, you have to wear a proof of exemption." I says, "No, I don't. I don't have to prove anything to you." She says, "You do. You need to wear a mask."
And this is one of the things that we knew anyway.
Yeah.
And I think many people do know this now, that are aware of the situation, that you don't need to provide any proof. And even if you had to provide proof, you can't get it from your doctor, because the doctors were told not to issue proof of exemption. Even if you had a valid reason for not wearing a mask, they will not, because they'll have been inundated with people wanting certification to say that I am, because I know this because I had an issue at work regarding this, and they wanted proof, and I couldn't get proof because my doctor wouldn't give that. And I found out on the GP online website, which I signed up to, and I still get emails from inviting me to listen to the podcasts and look at stuff that they're telling each other, that they advised all doctors not to give exemption certification out. So you haven't got any proof, but you don't need it by law.
You don't need it, and she insisted that I should have been wearing a lanyard, which said I don't have to wear anything, because obviously we know that. So anyway, still got no help. She still was following behind me. You know, she could have given me a hand really to the toilet, but no, she was more insistent on.
She was social distancing.
She was social distancing.
That's right. Even wearing
so
a
I
mask
actually turned round and said, "I'll mask you." To which she said, "I'll have you ejected. What did you just say? You're harassing me." And I just said, "Oh, stop bullying me." And she was just like, "I'm not bullying you," and left me anyway. She just left me alone, and I carried on my way. So anyway, the consultant came back to me after going away and pleased. He said he was pleased that I hadn't discharged myself, which I hadn't anyway. But he came back and said, "Seeing as you're a non-believer, obviously in COVID, would you go to a COVID ward? Could I put you on a COVID ward?" So I said to him, if there wasn't COVID and you had someone else here before COVID and they were as ill as I am right now, or you think I am right now, or I might be right now, would you put them on a viral ward, knowing that it might be, you know, it might hamper their recovery? And he said yes. So I said, fine, put me up there then. Not that I was worried anyway, because I wasn't worried about going to the COVID ward. Reasons being, it is, I think, what we have always thought it would be, is people, yes, they might have a viral infection, it could be flu, it could be anything, colds, or just a false positive, or they could be ill from something else and they're marking it down as COVID. Being a skeptic, as you know, is the word of the day. I couldn't say no, could I really? It was either that or nothing. And so anyway, I said yeah, because I wasn't scared going up there. And
you wanted to get well.
I wanted to get well. I needed treatment. I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. But I knew that I couldn't go back home that day. The oxygen seemed to be working, and I knew that I needed oxygen.
Was it practically straight away that you noticed a difference, or was it just a gradual thing?
It was a gradual thing, but instead of everything, once I was on it, I was on quite a high dose to start with, obviously, because they're really low, my SATs. I could speak. I could, you know, I felt more free and easy in myself. So I knew I needed that. And, you know, as we all do, we want to know really what's wrong with us. It could have been anything.
Yeah.
It could have been anything. At that point, we didn't know what it were because I needed a CT scan and everything, which they said that's why they needed to admit me. I needed more scans. So I agreed to it just one night, which kept haunting me up for 5 days. But, yeah, so I agreed to go up to the ward. And my fears, I didn't have any fears of going there, but what I thought was absolutely correct. These places are not full of COVID people.
No, which we knew.
Yeah. So it was quite late when I got up onto a ward anyway, and they put me in a ward that I thought had no one in it because it was dark when they put me in there. And I thought I was on my own anyway. I wasn't. I was in with another woman because she just like did a little silent hello from the dark. And I went, oh, I didn't know you were in there. And it was a young woman. And she didn't know she'd been put on a COVID ward either. Well, I knew, but she didn't know. But she was rushed in on an emergency. Obviously, I don't know, they can't test them without their consent.
So basically, you are put on I think when I turned up at the hospital that time,
it was a suspected COVID.
Yeah, potential. I think
that's whatever.
Potentially COVID ward.
Yeah,
and it was an orange sign.
Yeah,
I remember seeing an orange sign on the door.
Yeah, yeah. That ward that was on, she was gone the next day. That woman, because she was fine. Whatever, she had a collapse, and you know they did some tests on her, and she was absolutely fine. So she went, but then it filled up with other people. None of them. They were mainly old people. None of them had COVID. They were all jabbed up. They were all in for other things. Why they were on that ward,
falls and things on it, I think, mainly.
It were mainly the second one I went on, which I'll speak about later, which they were falls, but they were still elderly women that were in these places, but they were obviously taking a turn for worse. I mean, there were one woman in there, why they put her on a COVID ward, I don't know, that she was waiting for an operation that kept getting cancelled because of COVID, because she couldn't ingest food. And she needed an operation on a bowel for that. And all she could eat was yogurts. That's all she could eat. She couldn't eat anything else. And she says she used to be 12 stone. And when she was in there, she was 6 stone because she'd been waiting months and months for this operation. And they keep cancelling it. And that's what she was in there for, waiting for the operation. And they stuck her on a fucking COVID ward. If you believe in COVID, that's the last place.
Yeah.
She needed to be.
Yeah.
Right? Or with any other sick people, really, she just needed to be in and out and that done, because obviously if you're not getting nutrition, if you're not getting what you need, you're susceptible to anything.
Yeah. Your body starts shutting down, doesn't it?
And she told me, and she was an absolute lovely woman, and she said, I've only got about a month because my body will not cope with any more of this. Why'd they let her wait that long? So that was eye-opener number one, really, for me.
Because they were shutting everything down to deal with people who had a bad cold, flu type thing.
Yeah.
Which is what it is, and it is now. It's coming out now that's exactly what it always has been.
Yeah.
And they've put that as a priority above everything else.
Yeah.
Which was our concern when you went in. Because we knew that you would be classed as a COVID, and you didn't want treating as a COVID. I mean, I absolutely shit myself when I came home, because the enormity of it when I walked in the door and you weren't here, it worried me massively. And like I say, I just sat there with the phone hoping that you'd call, not knowing what you were going through. Was one of the worst things that I've ever endured. And it was nothing compared to what you were going through.
Wasn't the it wasn't the illness in there. It was the psychological bullshit that you were put through for people that are supposed to be carers in there. There was, don't get me wrong, there was a couple of them that were absolutely sound. They were lovely nurses. But yeah, in that first one, I wasn't there long before I was moved off that one, off the possible COVID ward. And they were moving me, and they said that they were moving me to another ward, which was the quick release ward, apparently, where you go when you're going to be released soon, which absolutely made my heart sing. I thought, oh, brilliant, brilliant, you know.
You're getting better.
I'm getting off, I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was the actual COVID ward that they moved me on to.
The reason we know this, and I know this, is because over the following few days there were a few texts and an odd phone call that came in between. First phone call was basically, can you bring me some food because the food's crap.
Yeah.
I'm not eating, I can't eat this, this is awful.
Never seen such things.
Which was sandwiches and anything that she could just leave and eat whenever she wanted to, bit of fruit, an odd yogurt, but also a phone charger to make sure that she was charged up and she was okay. But when I first went up to the ward, I remember walking through the hospital, and I did it on purpose. The first time I went in, I videoed me walking through the hospital, and it was like a ghost town.
It was dead.
It was like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, which used to be peak visiting times, and there was absolutely nobody about. And I walked in, I didn't have a mask on. I walked into the hospital, walked straight down the wards, up in the lifts, and to the ward that I needed to go on. And when I stood in front of the door, he had an orange sign on it that said potential COVID. And I'm thinking, what? Because I'd not had a great deal of conversations with Caroline about it, because we're trying to keep her time down to keep her phone charged. And I didn't know how they were going to react, so I put the bag down on the floor and I stepped back. The last thing I wanted was any confrontation. The only thing I wanted was Caroline to get the stuff she needed and that she was going to be okay. The nurse opened the door. She looked down and saw the bag. And I said, there's a bag there. And I'm thinking, is she going to get this for 2 days? Because I'd heard that they were going to leave things that you weren't going to be using purely because it was a bit like the sanitising the fucking food and stuff that you went to the supermarket to buy, which came out at the beginning. So I weren't sure whether she was going to get everything within a day or so anyway. And she must have been one of the nice ones, because she was like, all right, yeah, that's for Caroline. And she said, all right, yeah, no problem, I'll make sure she gets it. And then Caroline sent me a text as I'm on my way out, as I'm filming everything again. And like I say, it was a ghost. And tumbleweeds were rolling down the hospital bloody corridors with me. And she sent me a message to say that she'd got it, the stuff. And I'm thinking, but they're telling everybody to disinfect the food and leave it for 72 hours before they even touch it. But yet, in the hospital, the nurse came out, grabbed the bag, took it straight to Caroline and said, here you are, your husband brought this in. So yeah, then the next time I came down, there was a red sign on the ward door, which was the other ward that she was in, which said COVID ward. Mm-hmm. Which you weren't made aware that you had COVID, which you didn't.
I didn't.
Which you just explained the test that you took.
Well, that was when I got moved to the quick release ward, the going home ward, as they called it, or explained it to me, which it wasn't.
Because they have a rule of testing everybody every 3 days.
You get tested, yeah.
Right, okay.
So, I got moved and put on another ward, which was on the, as we now know, supposedly the COVID ward. I was in 2 different sections on that ward, and in each one, I wasn't on the first one long, but as I'm a keen busybody, I did ask anyone in there if they had COVID, and none of them did. They said, no, we've had our vaccine. which was only one then, not the 3 that they're asking for now. And then when they moved me a couple of wings up from where I was, again, I asked, and no, nobody had COVID on there either. So this was a COVID ward with, I would say, minimal COVID on there. What I did find out is that the COVID patients that were on there, which there were 1, and 1 suspected, they were shut in their own rooms. They weren't allowed out to mix, but they were allowed to use the same toilet facilities as us, which, listen, I don't give 2 shites about, but if this is supposed to be a really contagious disease, and the people in there that haven't got COVID, why are they using the same facilities? And the facilities weren't cleaned very often either. In fact, once a day, which is the norm in many workplaces, but you'd think in a hospital it would be more than that.
You'd think it'd be after every use.
Yeah.
If this is the thing that's, we've talked about this a lot about, if it was as infectious and as dangerous as they said, we would all be dead by now.
Yeah.
All of us. Because there is not one biohazard bin on every street corner to put your masks in. Instead, you wear a mask, or people who wear them, they put them in the pocket, they pull it out, they'll put it back on, they'll put it in the pocket, they'll pull it out, they'll put it back on, they'll hang it from the rearview mirror in the car, they'll pick it back off, they'll put it back in. So it's the same mask over and over again. If this was as dangerous as they're saying it was, then it's on your hand. When you put your hand in your pocket, you grab your mask, you put it on your face. You then touch other things. Then you might sanitize your hands when you walk into the supermarket. But it's still in your pocket and it's still on your mask, if it is. And this is what people, I think, this is the whole conditioning.
Yeah,
but
they did say that from the beginning, didn't they? Once you touch it, you need to bin it. But nobody's going to do that.
No.
Nobody's going to have 20 masks a day going in and out of the, washing machine.
But they never turned around and said, oh, it's getting worse.
No.
You've got to do this. Just make sure you do this. It's really important.
We all know what masks are about.
They just turned around and said, right, don't go to work. Everybody's locked down. Yeah. And that was absolutely mental. Absolutely mental. Sorry.
So anyway, this is the main ward which affected me the most, because I saw lots of things on this ward in my last 4 days, I think, there. Because I got moved about a bit. This is the worst ward, in my eyes anyway. I don't know if anybody else will feel the same as me. I'd started getting better by this time. Yeah. Still need the oxygen a bit. I got shouted at for going to the toilet again, toilet gate, because
they wanted you to use a commode, didn't they?
They wanted me to use a commode, and I says, well, my 2 legs still work, I'm going to the toilet.
Yeah. Because you felt you were able to make it to the toilet.
I was able. Yeah. I breathing, but not as bad as I was here.
But you didn't have a mask on, and they didn't like that, did they?
No, they didn't like that. Shouted it again.
Yeah.
Bad girl.
Naughty.
They put little bits of plastic around your beds in hospitals now so that you don't spread your dirty germs to anybody. They never wash these bits of plastic, by the way, when they come down cleaning.
You not saw them wipe them down once, did you, at all, in the time you were there?
I sent you a picture of the cleaner, didn't I?
Did.
In there.
You did.
Who, I couldn't say that was deep cleaning.
No.
Even spoke to her, she was so pissed off. Couldn't be bothered with the job. Didn't like it. See, that's who you've got. Oh, they're all celebrating, these people who work for the NHS. Can't be arsed. I saw her miss every main touched surface. She cleaned the bed base to a fraction of its life. The bed mattress, sorry, which is covered up by sheets, which no person would touch. But the tables and things like that everybody touches, and the windowsills at the side, if you buy the window, which I were, no, they didn't get done.
Because you were obviously sanitising every 30 seconds, weren't you?
No, there were no sanitizer in there. Well, there were actually, but only for the nurses, up by the nurse thing. Yeah, and they also left old things at when people had gone out. They'd give you some wipes and they'd give you some tissues, and they'd leave those there for the next person. In what same world of a COVID ward would you do that? If it was going to kill you?
Yeah.
You just wouldn't, would you?
No. See, me and you know this.
So I looked at that and I just thought, I mean, listen, I inherited somebody's old shit as well, and I thought, oh, tissues, they're free, great. You know, I'll have them.
It never gave you COVID, did it?
I didn't get COVID. No. Anyway, day 3. We'll go to day 3.
Yeah.
The PCR test
It's only taken us an hour to get to
rears
day 3.
its ugly head again. The PCR,
Yeah.
you're killing people test.
Naughty, dirty girl.
So,
Toe the line.
the lady comes in who doesn't like me at all. Don't know why. Maybe because I won't wear a mask. Oh, I'm here to... listen, I did the... what is it, streptococcal test. I did that for them.
Yep.
I did various tests for them. But I'm not having that pugil stick up my snoz for anybody. Yes, exactly. Procedure. Not doing it.
No. Reason why? Because you've got body autonomy.
Yeah. So,
which every person has.
I'm knackered by day 3 because they don't leave you alone. Taking your temperature, taking your obs, doing your oxygen level, all that rubbish. Every 4 hours in there.
That weren't just you though, was it? It was
it's everybody.
Every patient. It wasn't
so
just because of what you had. It was every patient.
You're knackered. You don't get rest. You don't get rest.
Even if you fell down the steps and they were in there, they still got pestered every 3 or 4 hours.
They did. So anyway, I'm knackered and this nurse comes and I says, she takes this long thing out and I just thought, oh. So I says, oh, what's that? What are you doing to me now? It's PCR test. I says, no, it's not. Well, yes, it is. I says, not for me, it's not. I says, I wouldn't have one down in A&E. I says, I'm not having one now. Why not? Because I don't want one. But you've got to have one. You're killing people. I says, why not having a PCR test? I says, I'm on a COVID ward.
Shouldn't matter whether you got it or not.
It shouldn't matter. Yeah, exactly. I'm on the COVID ward. I don't need a PCR test. Whether I've got it or not, I'm on here. You will kill people if you don't have this. I says, how? How am I killing people? I says, I'm not having it. And then 2 of the nurses come up all shouting at me. I can't tell you what they said because it's just like shouting. I'm just like, just back off. I'm not having it. So she said, I'm having you ejected off this ward. I says, fair enough. Do it. I'm calling infection control on you and the doctors. I says, get them here. Just get them here, please. I love to talk to these people.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And this is all because you've more got your wits about you now.
Yeah. So I'm now recovering a bit. So the doctor come and he's like saying, you don't want your PCR test. I says, no, I don't want it. I says, I don't have to have it, do I? And he's like, you don't have to have any procedure you don't want. That's from the doctor.
Yeah. So
she's slapped down straight away.
Which is basically the nurses know fuck all.
Yeah. So anyway, after that, and so I knew that they couldn't do anything to me by then, which was great.
Yeah.
So then infection control come, and she's saying to me, do you want to raise a complaint? And I was in tears because I'd had enough. I was tired. You don't get any. And I'm just saying, I just don't want these tests. I don't want them. And I don't want to raise a complaint because I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
No,
they're doing the job. I just want to do me time here like I'm in prison, you know.
Get better
and go home.
Yeah. That's what hospitals are for, though, isn't it?
So she said, we'll move you to a separate room away from everybody. I said, why? Why do I need to move? I'm not hurting anybody. I don't associate with anybody. We're all separated off. Yeah. If I talk
more than 6 foot, more than 2 metres.
If I talk to anybody, we're miles away. I'm not going up to the beds of anything. The plastic sheet, yeah. You seem to think that's great. And if somebody really needs that separate room, why should I take that up?
Yeah.
I don't want to take that room up because somebody might need that. And that really upset me, and I got and she was like, oh, don't cry, all that business, which I felt a dickhead at. But, you know, I was so tired and exhausted by it all. It's just too much. You're trying to recover, and these idiots that are supposed to be caring people are not caring at all. No. They're just trying to lay some shit on you that it's not true.
Yeah.
So anyway, under that pressure, I agreed to have a throat swab.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have it up the nose. So I said, I'll have a throat one. And I'm ashamed to admit that, because that's sort of giving in, really. I should have just said, no, fuck you. Fuck the lot of you.
Yeah, you should. But you at the end of the day, you were you were on the verge of death.
Not then I weren't.
No, but you were before that.
I just wanted them to go away. Do you know the nurse that first come up to me, because she was such a cunt, basically. I wouldn't have done anything for her apart from set her on fire. Yeah. But this infection control was so lovely. I just sort of caved in. It's unreal, really.
First time I guess you had any compassion.
Nice, yeah.
And, yeah.
So anyway, the one that I would have loved to burn to death came back with pugil stick for throat. And by the Christ did she ram it in there and met me gag.
Oh, that's the one that dropped.
And that's the one that, at the end, yeah.
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 There was somebody who, sorry, this is a conversation we have on a regular basis. Yeah. This was the person that pushed her out on a wheelchair to me. And I was like really nice to her. Yeah. And when I got in the car, she went, oh, that's that bitch. And did that. And I was like, you're kidding me. If I'd have known that, I would not have been as nice. She would have got my full fucking wrath.
Just on a note of the hospital being empty, every procedure that I had to have done, i.e. CT scans, x-rays and various other things on heart monitors and things like that, every time I went down to the rooms or pushed around the hospital to the rooms, I got in there straight away. There was no other people waiting, and everybody knows that you don't get anywhere straight away when you're going for a procedure done or any tests done in the hospital. The place was an absolute ghost town. Apart from the people that were in the wards. Yes, the wards were quite busy. That I was on 3 of them. Well, 2 wards, 3 different rooms. But I would say that I know that the rest of the hospital wasn't. There just wasn't the patients around. Very few staff around as well. So
because they shut the wards down.
They shut the wards, yeah. I mean, like I said before to you, there was a big ward next to the ward that I was on my last run, my second ward that was on, the last days, and I think it looked like to be a 12-bedder, because when I was being pushed around to get some whatever procedure done to me, I had obviously nosy, I had a look, and they were just using it as a room to sit in and a meeting room, basically.
Staff meeting room.
Yeah, even though the staff room was on the other side to the ward.
So while people were at home getting cancer and getting other diseases, they were using the wards that they could have gone on as a staff meeting room.
They were, but they didn't have the staff anyway to man them. That's a big problem.
They could send them home.
It's nothing to do with the amount of people. It's a lack of staff. All of it is a lack of staff. And what they're going to do if this goes through where the people have to leave because they won't be jabbed up with the poison, then I don't know. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
But that's probably in the government's agenda anyway, to privatise even more.
Yeah.
But that's a conspiracy, obviously.
Obviously.
So anyway, we'll go on to...
So the nurse came, nasty nurse,
Yeah.
came to do the swab.
Yeah.
And she jabbed it in your gob and made you gag and stuff because she's a bitch.
a horrible
Putting it
one.
nicely.
Yeah, she doesn't belong to work in that setting.
No. There's no compassion with folk like that. Everybody thinks that these nurses, like I've said once already, everybody thinks the nurses are angels. And I'm sure there are some people there that are.
Yeah.
But they are susceptible to the brainwashing. They are susceptible to all the programming.
Prejudices, everything.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
And there were people in there like that. Lots of nurses. So this last ward that I was in had the most profound effect on me because it was predominantly full. Well, not full. There was only 6 beds in there, but apart from myself, I'm in my 50s. Still consider myself quite young. But it mainly had 80-year-old plus people in there. A couple went while I was in there, but there was 2 that remained. A really old lady that was next to me and an old deaf lady that was across from me, which I really bonded with. She was a lovely lady. They didn't have COVID, by the way. They had falls and they put them in there. And they were vaccinated as well.
And this was in the COVID ward?
This was in the COVID ward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which beggars belief.
Yeah. And while I was in there, another lady came in, probably my age, but she was an utter brainwashed sheep, I will say that.
Yeah.
So the treatment of the people in there, I don't really, by then I was getting better anyway-ish. And I was more focused on what was happening around me with people. And the throwaway catchphrase seemed to be DNR. Which, listen, I listened long and hard for my name to be on that list.
Yeah.
The nurses' station was next to our ward. They're not quiet. They never were quiet. It makes me laugh when I go to the hospital on a near-on weekly basis for my bloods because you keep seeing signs up saying, please be quiet, people are recuperating, people need rest.
And you go to the hospital purely because you've had this pulmonary embolism.
Yeah, I need to give blood.
You're on warfarin now and you've got to keep your blood at a particular thickness. So once a week, near enough, you've got to go have your bloods done and then they ring you and say adjust your medicine, depending on the reading. Yeah. So that's why you go every week.
That's why I go. Yeah. I'm not addicted to hospital.
No.
But yet these nurses are the loudest people on earth. You don't need to watch soaps. I don't watch them. But you get their life story every single night. Shouting, swearing, creating. And this is into early hours. I mean, one night this woman come in. I don't know if she was a nurse or what, but she come in and she was effing and jeffing and telling us all about a wanker boyfriend and kids that she'd had to him and blah, blah, blah. And I actually had to shout out, can you shut up? There's ill women in here. I didn't mean myself. I did want some peace and quiet, but there were old ladies in there. I don't really think, a bit of respect to these people. You don't need to be giving that kind of trash talk. And these people hearing it, they don't need it. I spoke to these people in there and they seem to be good Yorkshire, old-fashioned people. They don't want to listen to somebody's old crap life story.
No.
At that time of night. So all the posters keep quiet. You need to reiterate this Barnsley District General Hospital to
That's
your
one thing
staff.
we've not mentioned which hospital it is. It is the Barnsley General Hospital.
Yes. Barnsley District
Sorry,
General Hospital.
District General Hospital. It's one thing we've not said, and we should have done right at the beginning, because that is that particular hospital.
And they need to be ashamed of themselves, really. Not just because of the prejudice that they've got there, which there's a lot of it, and I'm sure they're not all like that. You've got to give benefit of the doubt, but a lot of it is, and a lot of it is not nice. It's pretty nasty, the way they treat people. And the way that they treated the elderly there was something to behold. These people that have lived on this earth and got to the ripe old age of 80 plus, being treated like children, being treated, well, it lies beyond me, especially with the lady across from me. Now, I want to learn sign language strictly because this lady was deaf and I wanted to communicate with her more. She was so frustrated while she was in there because every single day that she was in there, she had people coming up to her. Nurses and doctors and
tea ladies and
tea lady, people for the dinner, to put what you want for your dinner and things like that, and also people that I don't know the names of them, that people that assess whether you can be discharged or not into your own home, whether you can look after yourself or not. Now this lady, she could do sign language, and she could read some things if you wrote them down, and she could lip read a little bit. Now, bearing in mind that most of the people in there that work there wear a mask, she can't lip read them people. Not got much chance if they can't do sign language, which they can't. So every day she got the same old shit put at her. You know, so after the second day...
Which is a what? A nurse shouting?
Nurses and doctors shouting at her.
Put away masks.
Even though above her bed it said deaf. It didn't say hard of hearing, it said
deaf.
This lady is deaf.
Yeah.
And like I said, she was quite an independent lady. She lived on her own, and her son came up 3 times a week to help with shopping, cleaning and bathing, etc. She was well looked after. She was in there because she'd fallen. She was fully jabbed up and she didn't have COVID. She shouldn't have been in there. She should have been on a geriatric ward, being catered for and looked after by people who deal with geriatric people, not in a COVID ward. 3 days on the trot, this lady was told she was going home. Now the first day it decided to snow, so her son couldn't get to her. But they left this lady sat in a chair, got out of bed and they stripped her bed, and they left this lady sat in a chair, and she'd got, which she told me, she'd got bed sores on her bottom, but they left her sat in this chair without one of those nice comfy ring things that they give normal people that have got that, you know, got such inflictions. From the morning, because they make you get out of bed in the morning to get your breakfast, so that's 8 o'clock-ish, until I think it was 11 o'clock at night. And she kept asking, because she'd been taken there in an emergency, she didn't have any of her own clothes there, so they kept having to bring in a nightie. So every time they stripped her bed, they took all the nightie and everything away, so she couldn't get ready for bed. She looked after herself with a toilet, with a colostomy bag, apart from the other. And when she did want that, I witnessed such a horrendous thing. She nearly shit herself on a couple of occasions because she pressed a buzzer and left her too long. Yeah. And she was so dignified and she was panic in her face. You can't do anything for them because you're not allowed to go near them.
No.
You're not allowed to go near them. You're not allowed to help them to the toilet. You're not allowed anything. You're not allowed to do anything for other people. But yet they don't want to do it. They come and turn a buzzer off and say, I'll get you in a minute. I'll come and bring the commode in a minute. And it was another half hour. The lady was just sat there. And this happened to this woman three nights. Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful that a lady at that age has got to that age. She's got overall, she had a normal life, dealing with everything that's, you know, life's thrown at her, and still being independent. And she's treated like, you know, something on the sidelines. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, because at the beginning of her life, she'll have lived through the end of the Second World War.
Yeah.
And they're coming into the latter stages of their life, being treated like they're a piece of shit, like they're a lump of meat, by these people who think that they are better than everybody else, because the government and the media have told everybody to put these people on these pedestals because they are angels and they are the saviours of everything that's going on.
Yeah, but they couldn't be even more thankful for what, always thankful for whatever.
Yeah, because they've got dignity, haven't they?
But, every time she got the repeated questions put at her, she'd look at me and, just be like...
Here we go again.
Here we go. Her eyes would go up and used to say, how many more times do I have to? And I said to her one day, do you understand me when I speak to you? Because she can understand lip reading. And she said, yes, I do. Because she couldn't understand a lot of the doctors and some of the nurses that were, what are they called? The bank nurses, the ones that are, not there all the time. Because they were foreign. She couldn't understand the dialect. She's a deaf woman and she spoke in broad Yorkshire. How do you do that? I don't know. She'd never heard a Yorkshire accent, but she speaks Yorkshire. She couldn't understand it. And they just used to shout at her. And I actually said to a couple of them, you need to take your mask off. She can lip read. They were shouting, we can't take our mask off. I says, well, you've got a visor on as well. And
the thing that bothers me is the venom of which all of these instructions are actually said to every single patient.
It is nasty, yeah.
Well, do as you're told. And that's the thing that really bothers me.
The thing with her is there weren't any venom there. It was that they got pissed off that she didn't understand. They were pissed off with her.
There's compassion. There's supposed to be these people that make your life.
Exactly. Not
everybody's in hospital. Not everybody goes to hospital. But when you go there, you're scared. You're frightened about how things are. I've had a hip replacement, and when I was in hospital, I was worried as to whether everything was going to be okay. But they're supposed to be there to look after you and make you feel safe.
Yeah, well, they didn't make her feel safe. Because they left her sat every day until she did finally get discharged, waiting. We'll get to you when we can. Do you know, one nurse actually said to her, I'm here to help you, I'm here to care for you. But then when she went to the toilet, told her she'd have to wait. When she wanted to go to the toilet, said she'd have to wait.
Mental, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I've told you, the one next to me, she had a DNR put on her. Because I was nosy, as usual, and listened to the roll call when they change hands, they read out the names who was on the wards and what they've got against them. That's why I knew that I didn't have one, or I'd have been straight down there scribbling that off.
I'm sorry if you're in the chinking of icing glasses. It's Saturday night, it's late, and we're having a drink.
No need to apologise for that,
I'm not apologising for that.
Yes, so anyway, she had a DNR. Yes, she was very old, she was very frail, but she was sound of mind. Apart from when they drugged her up to the max, where she would imagine all kinds of things with the tales, which made me giggle, with the Maxine, get your 3 dogs in and everything, which I found funny, but, But apart from that, when she wasn't on all them drugs, she was of sound mind. She knew she was. And she joined in conversations. But she was very frail. I would say she was knocking 90. I would say I knew she was sound of mind because they were trying to send her to a different care home afterwards. They were trying to discharge her to a different care home than she'd come from. But her son was in that care home. And she wanted to go back to her son.
Yeah.
And they were trying to tell her that it might not be possible. Yeah. And she was saying, I'm not going out of here unless I'm going with my son.
Was this the one with the DNR? Was this the one where...
Yeah. Where they...
Explain that.
Well, What, with the laxative things?
No, where they said...
oh, yeah, that when they took her out.
Podomatic.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, with the poor lady was bunged up once, so they gave her these laxatives. And by the Christ, we all knew about it, but that's not her fault. But then they kept trying to give her the same thing every night. So, because it was on a tablet sheet, and they kept getting these temporary nurses in, shall we call them? I don't know what they call them.
Banks.
Bank nurse, whatever. Yeah. Agency nurses, that's it, isn't it? Agency nurse. And it was a big black lady, basically. Didn't speak much English. And just told her she needed to take it because it was on the sheet. And she was saying, I'm not having it, I don't want it. And she was like, she slammed it down for her to have with a meal. Anyway, this woman flicked it on the floor. So that says to me, she knows her mind.
Yeah.
But yet she's got a DNR on her, just because she's not able-bodied anymore.
And again, just to make everybody aware, a DNR is do not
resuscitate. Yeah. So when they came to actually take her back to the home, which hopefully was the one where her son was, the people that came, the ambulance people that came to take her, the man that was there, gleefully, I thought, announced that, oh, this is a DNR, right? We don't have to do anything if she takes a turn for worse. And nurse just went, yeah. As she got her paperwork, he said. Because they need the paperwork if they're going to leave her to it. She weren't going anywhere, that lady. She just needed a bit of care. Bastards.
You see, I've had this conversation. We've had this conversation a number of times. Being married, we talk about this a lot because it was a massive part of our life with this, and it affected us hugely. And we've had this discussion about this DNR, and every single time we have this discussion, I don't know. I do struggle with it. I really do. That they can be so nonchalant about.
But she weren't the only one. There were
somebody
loads of
dying.
them.
About if something happens to somebody, don't worry, don't bother saving them. Yeah. They're on everybody's got a DNR. Everybody's on a DNR. And you just think...
It's like free a bed up, innit? Free a bed up.
Busy. You're not modern. You're not... You know, you haven't got wards and wards and wards full of people. You've got a couple of wards, maybe 3 wards, that have got... I don't know, I think when we looked to do it at 75% capacity. Yeah, but that's because 3 wards were 3/4 full. And yet they were putting DNRs on people so that if anything happened to them, they'd just leave them to die.
Yeah.
That's not what the NHS is about.
It is now.
Yeah, that is horrendous.
How they're accepting that it's okay to just let people die.
Yeah.
And that's not their oath, is it?
No, this is a Hippocratic oath.
Yeah,
is that what it is?
That's what it is. That's not their oath.
No.
Do no harm. Now. Do no harm.
They're doing harm there.
Yeah, of course they are.
Because they could save them and take them back to the hospital.
Yeah.
But instead, if they take a turn for the worse, they're just going to stand and watch them die.
Yeah.
And then say, well,
that's
we've done all the paperwork now to say that it's okay.
It's all right for us to
Job
watch
done.
somebody. Yeah.
Take her back. Next.
You just hope that they're hold their hand, but I bet they don't even do that.
No, I bet they don't. Oh, it's harrowing.
It's worse when you're watching it in front of your eyes. You know what's going on.
I'm sure it is. I'm lost for words sometimes when we have these conversations.
Well, I've skimmed over. I've missed quite a bit out because...
It seems to be going on forever.
It does.
But it's not. We are going to probably edit a few bits out. And I'll probably edit this bit out to say that we're going to edit bits out. But no, it's...
we'll go on to anyway. The leaving
part
of the hospital and yet again, what raised its ugly head?
The test.
The PCR.
Excellent.
So on the Saturday of my stay there...
You were taken in Sunday, weren't you?
It was Sunday, I think, weren't it?
Yeah.
So on the Saturday, zoning out. I know I'm getting a bit better. I'm now off the oxygen, which is great because I'm not tied up to that thing anymore. Everything's up. I can, I'm getting about okay. Minding my own business, just wanting to get out. And here comes Sister Death. Here she comes again.
This is the bitch, isn't
it? The bitch.
Yeah.
Wielding a little pugil stick at me. So I says, what's that? She says, you know what it is? I said, I know what it is. I says, but I'm not having it. We have them every 3 days in here. I says, you've done one. One's enough. I'll let you have one. So then she kicks off. Again, I'm
murderer.
Killing people again. Yeah, I'm dangerous. I'm dangerous to everybody in here. And I've got a lovely audience of people, watching again, which is great when you feel a bit small in the corner there. 2 others, why aren't you having it? You're dangerous. You're going to put people at risk in this hospital by not having it. And I just says, hang on a minute. You didn't even give me the last results that I had. I says, you better back away from me now or else. But I says, I'm not having this. I am not having you coming at me like this just because I won't have a test. I says, I'm in a COVID ward. I've been in 2 COVID wards. I haven't got COVID. I've not made anybody sick. Nobody in here's got COVID. Why are you doing this? Because we've got to. We have them. We have them all the time. I said, I don't care what you do. I'm not having them. It's up to you what you have. And it's up to me what I have.
Yep.
I'm not having it. I says, you get me the doctor now. I'm going home. I said, I'm not having any more of this. Get the doctor here now. Well, they all scurried off. And within half an hour, which is not too bad for an hospital doctor, actually, he was there. And I said, look, they keep pestering me for these PCR tests. I'm not having them. I haven't got COVID, whatever you want to call it. You know what I've got. You're treating me for what I've got. They didn't even tell me the results of the throat test that I gave them. I says, it's obviously not positive, is it? Because I've not been carted off into a room.
Even though you were on a COVID ward.
Yeah.
The only place they could have taken you is a side ward.
A side ward. That's what they do, yeah. Well, as I've told you before, there were nurses, male nurses, sat with their feet against side wards patients so they couldn't get out. Madness. So she said, so I insisted to know whether I were positive or not, because they took that swab from me and they've not given me an answer. So she was like, yes, it was negative, but it was only throat. And I just went, ENT, it's all connected, love.
Yeah.
I offered your other means, which are better, which is blood.
Yeah.
Is better than anything.
Yeah.
And she just scowled at me because they don't like anybody knowing more than they do. I wouldn't profess to be a scientist or biological know-it-all, because I'm not, but it doesn't take you much to learn what you need to know if there's anything wrong with you. And blood is the best thing. Yeah. By far.
I think the thing that people don't understand is that when nurses and doctors are learning to be nurses and doctors, they're reading documents and being told things. So when we read the same documentation, just because we don't have an exam at the end of it, which
don't mean to say we don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've had it a number of times, countless times on Facebook and stuff when we're posting things, trying to make others aware of what's going on. And you do get, but you're not a doctor. Where are your qualifications?
Yeah.
And I've lost count of the amount of medical documentation that both of us have read.
Yeah.
From
And knowing how to read things, that they make it hard for people who don't know how to read things, for like the ONS and places like that.
I do actually get that, because they're misleading. They're really misleading. The first time we downloaded one, which was
it took us
back
ages,
in
didn't
2019, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was, what was it, March, April, May time, kind of that kind of time.
It was like, what the hell is all this?
Yeah, and you actually had to just sit and look at it for a good 10 or 15 minutes to figure out the information. But fortunately, the careers that both me and Caroline have been in, we do understand the information. We do know how to decipher a spreadsheet and glean the information that you need to make an informed opinion on the information they've provided you.
Is lazy people who just want it handed to them and written out for them. Which
they want memes.
Yeah.
They want people who look at memes.
Whatever.
They don't want a spreadsheet. The people do not want a spreadsheet. They'll open that spreadsheet.
They want Whitty's chart.
If they can.
That's what they want.
That's what they want.
Chart.
At 6 o'clock every night.
Yeah.
They want somebody to tell them, not to look for themselves. And as soon as you've looked for yourself and you go, oh, hang on a minute, this isn't right. And you go to somebody else and say, this isn't right. They go, what do you know? You know nothing.
You're a liar.
Exactly.
But they're not willing to look at the same thing that you've looked at to prove that you're a liar.
Exactly.
That's
partly because you'd have to explain it. You'd have to explain what they're looking at, because they've no idea what they're looking at, because they don't understand. They're too busy watching television.
They're too busy watching soaps and shit like that. Dancing on whatever air.
Yeah. Wait for Boris to come on with his cronies and tell you that don't kill Granny, stay in your house. And while you're doing that, we're having parties. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah.
And this is 2 years on.
It will work. It was work.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah,
sorry. Right.
Yep. So
carry on. Sorry.
Well, Dr. who said to me every day that he came to see me, I know you only want to stay in for a day, but I need to keep you longer. Every day he said that to me. Bless him. Knew I hated it. I knew the score. I knew that they couldn't make me do anything I didn't want to do. He didn't piss about. Oh, I forgot to add the story where I said I couldn't sleep, and his little sidekick offered to give me sleeping tablets, and I went, really? That's your answer to somebody not sleeping?
Yeah.
To drug them up more? Yeah. Which he didn't like. So when they put me on the warfarin, he delighted in telling me it was rat poison. And I said, yeah, I know it is. Yeah, I know. It's not all rat poison.
Because we're not daft.
Yeah.
Because we know.
They don't like it.
We look into things,
the doctor got me. He knew I knew what I knew. He knew they couldn't boss me in that way. And when he came to me that, he knew he had to come because I was going to kick mightily off, that either kick me out or sort me out. He sorted me out. He said to me, you still need further treatment. We can't stabilise your bloods. And I said, I can't stay in here another day. I cannot keep getting bullied for PCR tests and things that I don't want.
Which is what it was.
Yeah. Because I'm really calm now and I'm not that person. I'll kick off. I don't want that. There's old people in here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be doing that in this place. I want to go home. I want to sleep. I want to sleep in my own bed. I want to be in my own comforts. I don't want this crap. No. You know, and basically said to him, you know. And he said, yeah. He says, but we need to do your bloods and everything every day, and we need to have injections as well of this other stuff. I says, I'll inject myself, or I'll get my husband to inject me, whatever. He'll inject me. Send me home with stuff, and I'll do it. I says, you get your bed back.
Yeah.
Somebody else can come in here. I'm not blocking beds. Been in here long enough, and he just said, yeah, all right, we'll do that then. But you've got to come back, which I had to go back every bloody day.
Yeah, because I was off work, wasn't I?
Yeah, you were. Furlough. Brilliant
furlough. Well, that weren't furlough, though.
Weren't it?
No, that was, they wouldn't allow me back at work.
Oh, yeah.
Until I had
because,
a test.
Yeah, because I was on a COVID ward that didn't have any COVID on it. Yeah.
Test.
Yeah.
so they refused to allow me back at work. But because I was salaried, meant they had to pay me for the time I was off. So I just told them I was on sick, and I refused to have a test. And I said that they couldn't force me to have a medical procedure. Yeah. Which didn't impress them.
Well, but it's right.
But it allowed me that time to be able to take you to hospital every day for. It were about 3 or 4 or 5 days, wasn't it? It was
more. It was quite
every day. Was it? No, it weren't.
It was about a month's worth of that.
Not
anyway.
Not every day. I don't think it was every day.
We're not arguing over this, are we?
We might do. It's late. We might do.
Anyway, that was that. That was my great escape. It was a shit time in hospital, and I saw mistreatment of many elderly patients, which is embarrassing. It contributed to this country in their own way, whatever little way, by working probably in the war effort when it worked, because these people were old. They brought kids into the world that's contributed to the economy. And they get to a certain age and they're treated like shit, basically, by people.
Can't phrase it any other way,
no.
Can you? No matter how nice you try to put it. And that will. Right, I think we're going to call it a day. Thank you for listening. I hope you've listened all the way through this. It's been a long one. We're going to edit stuff out, so it might end up a lot shorter than this, but hopefully. But yeah, it's been emotional because every time I talk to her about this, I get so angry. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Yeah, good night.
Yeah. Sometimes I get so mad, there's no controlling me. My thoughts get so bad, I'm like, I might grab a bat, I don't know. My wrath, my blood boils over like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show. So have you ever felt betrayed? Switches how you see things, realize something needs change. Cause I know you got me fucked up, let me show you what's up. Cause enough is enough. I'll take a face full of pavement just to make a statement. I know there's no turning back. Oh God, adrenaline wasted, so mad I can taste it. I know there's no turning back. I'll do what it takes, I ain't making mistakes like that. I'll play it on your face to make you go take it back. I'll lose my shit, I go crazy when I'm mad. And now you go wish you would shut the fuck up real bad. And now that I'm gone, yeah, I know there's no turning back. And now that I'm gone, yeah, I know there's no turning back. I don't fucking take smoke, I'ma poke a hole through you, choking's overdue. Come at me and you won't get any older, dude, crack your holder too. Heating up inside of me, blood so violently, thanks for trying me. Now it's finally time to see how this rivalry becomes a dynasty.